I'm ready to start preparing for 2023. We have, in my opinion, the right amount of time to start diving into these players truly in depth. And in this video, I want to do right to my most drafted wide receiver in fantasy this year. I want to go through, look at Jaylen Waddle, his entire football career, take away some lessons learned, as well as predictions going forward of what the true ceiling is like for Jaylen Waddle. And we have a decent amount of real Dynasty fantasy football trades to look at the end of this video. But before we get to anything, please go down there, drop a like on this, subscribe to the channel only if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down there in the comment section. And if you want to check out any of these player props, every week you can find them on Underdog Fantasy. On Underdog, you can also draft with us on the live stream. You know, we did over 700 drafts this year on that stream. And if you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. You can find the link in the description and in the comment section. But I think that should be about it. And I want to break this down into chapters. Let's go and let's look at Jaylen Waddle coming out of high school. We're going to be super brief with this, but just to give the full background of Jaylen Waddle, the football player. In high school, Jaylen Waddle was a 4-star prospect. According to 247 Sports, he was a top 5 prospect in Texas. Texas is pretty damn big. And he was a top 5 wide receiver prospect in the 2018 high school recruiting class. So Jaylen Waddle has the pedigree. Jaylen Waddle has always been that dude, and it kind of makes sense. You don't go to Alabama as a nobody. He goes to Alabama. Of course, the man was a stud from day one. Now, evaluating him as a college wide receiver was something that's extremely difficult in my process, where I don't trust my eyes. I don't trust what I see on the TV. I know a lot of people think they can watch the TV, they can watch a football game, they can remove every piece of context on what's happening with the football field, and they can say this wide receiver is going to be successful. This is not. In my opinion, it's very hard to listen to someone like that, because how the hell are they proving it to you? I can go through and I can show you our model and our in-depth wide receiver prospect analysis and how accurate it's been over time. I can easily do that with numbers. And Jaylen Waddle was very difficult to evaluate with that prospect model, because Jaylen Waddle didn't really have too much production at Alabama. In his freshman season, the man had 15 games of 45 receptions, 848 receiving yards. But from a market share perspective, these weren't numbers that popped off the page. It's not like Jaylen Waddle came out here and dominated right away as a freshman like you saw with someone like Rondale Moore as an example. His sophomore year, I mean, same thing. It was okay, not too impressive. His junior season, pretty damn good. I mean, he did get injured. Keep in mind, he was dealing with the severe ankle injury, but 591 receiving yards in 6 games played. Like Jaylen Waddle's junior season, he was phenomenal. But the reason it was so difficult to evaluate Jaylen Waddle's production is we really had never seen something like this. I had never seen this before in my experience of evaluating these players coming into the NFL. 2018, the Alabama roster had Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Jaylen Waddle at wide receiver. 4 round 1 wide receiver prospects. At running back, you had Josh Jacobs, Damian Harris, Najee Harris, Brian Robinson. 4 quality NFL running backs. You had a quality NFL tight end in Irv Smith Jr. You had Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones on the same roster. This is more talent than I have on 99% of my fantasy teams. That is why, from a numbers perspective, Jaylen Waddle was an extremely difficult prospect to evaluate. Now, the NFL did a good job of evaluating Jaylen Waddle. Clearly, entire NFL scouting departments were able to sit down, and the Miami Dolphins were able to say, okay, yeah, based on what we see on the field, based on what we see on tape, Jaylen Waddle is an elite level wide receiver. We have a pick around 10. I think it was the 12th pick. We have the 12th pick overall, but instead of rolling the dice that Jaylen Waddle falls to us at 12, how about we take that pick and trade it with another future first to move up to 6 to guarantee that we get Jaylen Waddle? They traded the 12th overall pick and a future first to go get Jaylen Waddle at 6, indicating that, hell, the NFL was fully sold on this prospect that had the pedigree going into college, that was good in college but difficult to evaluate. So now we have, in my opinion, confirmation that Jaylen Waddle should be viewed as an elite level prospect if an NFL team was willing to give that capital for him. And he goes his rookie season and dominates. This is why Jaylen Waddle was my most drafted wide receiver in over 700 underdog drafts this year. If you look at Jaylen Waddle's rookie season, better than almost any wide receiver you can find. If we are looking at first round drafted rookie wide receivers that averaged 7.7 targets per game, that averaged 65 receiving yards per game, here's the list: Odell Beckham Jr., Jaylen Waddle, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Amari Cooper, Julio Jones, Mike Evans, and AJ Green. Hall of Fame wide receivers. Now we have Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave on this list. I'm really excited to talk about them in videos in the coming weeks. But regardless, alongside Hall of Fame talents as rookies, another massive checkbox for Jaylen Waddle. So this player that was difficult to evaluate as a prospect, but the NFL told us he was elite. He proved that he was elite his rookie season. Now, going into year 2, a lot of people were having a difficult time evaluating with Tyreek Hill coming over. Nobody was willing to buy into Tua Tagovailoa, but Jaylen Waddle has continued to dominate. If we look at Jaylen Waddle, what was not too great his first season in the NFL was the efficiency. His yards per target, not phenomenal. That's something that he had to prove. That's something that he had to do his second season. And his second season, he's done just that. He's had 10.9 yards per target. If we look at wide receivers in their first 2 years of their NFL careers, wide receivers that have averaged 7 targets a game, 81 receiving yards per game, and 10.9 yards per target. So what Jaylen Waddle was able to do: Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Torrey Holt, Victor Cruz, and Jaylen Waddle. So Jaylen Waddle's up there with Jefferson. He's up there with Jamar Chase. And keeping into context this second season for Jaylen Waddle, you have to remember, this is a wide receiver that missed Tua Tagovailoa, his starting quarterback, for a stretch of games. Jaylen Waddle himself dealt with a hip injury for a stretch of games. And this past week against the San Francisco 49ers, he goes down at the very beginning of the contest. So I would make an argument that these per game numbers for Jaylen Waddle are honestly maybe a little bit worse than they would have been otherwise if Jaylen Waddle stayed healthy, if his quarterback stayed healthy through the course of the entire season. Clearly, the Dynasty fantasy football community does not view him in that light. I understand you have Tyreek Hill in the same offense, but if we look forward for Jaylen Waddle, this is a wide receiver that is going into year 3 next year, still an extremely young option. And if you compare this to Tyreek Hill, the aging vet, I would assume that the volume in this Miami Dolphins offense is going to be more and more skewed to Jaylen Waddle going into the future. But what I really like about Tyreek Hill being here is if Tyreek Hill maybe develops into more so just a field stretching wide receiver that's not necessarily commanding a ton of target volume in 2023, in 2024, he maybe is going to be the piece that continues the elite level of efficiency that we are getting from 24-year-old Tua Tagovailoa in this Miami Dolphins offense. So I think the situation is actually pretty damn good for Jaylen Waddle going forward. Keep in mind, hell, this Dolphins team doesn't have a first-round pick next year either. They lost that first-round pick in the Tom Brady controversy, blah, blah, blah. So it's not like they're going to go out there and bring in another significant weapon to take targets away from Jaylen Waddle. And if we're looking at his Dynasty ranking right now, he is ranked as the wide receiver 3 in Dynasty, according to Keep Trade Cut. Very difficult to figure out exactly how he should be ranked, exactly what his value should be. So what I wanted to do is I went to Twitter and said, if you have made a Jaylen Waddle trade or seen a Jaylen Waddle trade as of late, let me know it, and I'll be happy to go through and talk about it in a video. So we have a decent amount of trades that are here. This first one coming out from Steven, where he picked up Jaylen Waddle and Joshua Kelly. Joshua Kelly is literally nothing. So he traded for Jaylen Waddle. And he gave up Deebo Samuel, McCole Hardman, who's literally nothing. So he gave up Deebo Samuel and a future second-round pick. Now, this was done about a month ago, almost 5 weeks ago. But still, 5 weeks ago, Jaylen Waddle was still a borderline top 5 wide receiver. Not much has changed over the past 5 weeks with Jaylen Waddle. I would be surprised if you could get this deal done in too many leagues. But if we were having to grade this trade A+++, I would rather have Waddle in redraft. I'd rather have Waddle in Dynasty. I'd rather have Waddle over the next 10 years. Not even going to be close. Now, this next trade coming out from Colby. This one, he receives Jaylen Waddle, trades away Dameon Pierce, Elijah Moore, and a second. I don't know if this is where people think Dameon Pierce is valued in Dynasty at this point. Please, everybody, if you're watching this, do not value Dameon Pierce here. We have seen this time and time again from rookie running backs in Dynasty Fantasy Football that are day 3 draft picks / undrafted. The NFL does not care about these guys. They are quick to replace them like that. We've seen this in recent history. James Robinson, top 5 fantasy football running back, his rookie season. What happens the next year? They draft Travis Etienne in the first round. The year after, Elijah Mitchell averages 100 total yards per game. 100 total yards per game. And after his rookie season, what happens? They draft Tyrion Davis-Price in the 3rd round. When that doesn't work out, they go out there and they trade for Christian McCaffrey. The NFL does not care about these running backs that don't have the pedigree, even if they are impressive. The Houston Texans have a buttload of draft picks. Don't be too surprised if there's going to be a free agent running back or a rookie running back going over to the Houston Texans to run alongside Dameon Pierce this year. And then he's second in Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore is a fine prospect coming out of Ole Miss, but dear God, from what we've had so far, it's so damn hard to say these wide receivers are anything close to the same caliber. Like we've said, Jaylen Waddle, every step of the process has proven he's an elite wide receiver. Now going over to another one of Colby's trades. Here he gets Jaylen Waddle a first and a second by giving up a first. So let's just say the 2024 first and second is the same as the 2023 first. Let's just remove the picks from the deal. So he gives up Devonta Smith and Deontay Johnson for Jaylen Waddle. I'd make an argument, hell, if Jaylen Waddle was the wide receiver too, fair deal. But the man is an elite level wide receiver. I don't want to say he's in the same tier as Jefferson. I don't want to say he's in the same tier as Chase. But he's the closest to it, okay? He's pretty damn close to it. So, I mean, if you were to replace Waddle's name with Chase here, think about how this trade looks. And then this last deal we're looking at, I mean, you give up essentially Metcalf and a future first to get back Tony Pollard and Jaylen Waddle. I think Waddle is tiers ahead of DK Metcalf. Every single one of these trades, give me Jaylen Waddle. The next trade we have coming out from Lewis, who gives up Juju, a future first, second, and third for Jaylen Waddle. So you give up a draft class for Jaylen Waddle. I can be pretty damn sure that no player you take in that 2023 class not named Bijan Robinson is going to be as good of a dynasty asset as Jaylen Waddle. Juju Smith-Schuster has no guaranteed money on Kansas City next year. He's a free agent. Who the hell knows where Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be in 2023? You're getting an elite level receiver. Nick, I mean, goes through. This is one that's interesting. Sends Jaylen Waddle, Juwan Johnson, Kareem Hunt, gets back essentially Derrick Henry and Christian Watson. Christian Watson was a wide receiver we invested in the best ball significantly this year. But in my opinion, not even remotely close to Jaylen Waddle. Derrick Henry's a 29-year-old running back. Even if you're a contending team, I probably want Jaylen Waddle here. Eric traded Kenneth Walker for Waddle straight up. Now, we had another person replying to this tweet acting as if it was a bad trade. Hell, I would take Jaylen Waddle over Kenneth Walker in a PPR format. So I don't know if I'm just the biggest Jaylen Waddle fanboy in the world. Like I said, we drafted over 700 teams this year. Jaylen Waddle was my most drafted wide receiver, so maybe I'm very biased. But I am willing to go all in on Waddle here. He checks every box along the way. I don't know what else you could ask for. But let me know if you think I'm a little bit too high on Jaylen Waddle. Let me know if you thought any of these trades were closer than I did. Let me know. Also, if you want more Dynasty content, you can do that down there in the comment section. Also, drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. If you want to check out any of these player props on Underdog Fantasy, if you want to get into a draft with us on Underdog, you can find the link in the comment section. Find it in the description. Use promo code FLOCK and they'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $200. But thank you again. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great day and hope we get to see you out with the video tomorrow.